There would be some improvement, and then it would slip back. We knew something was missing. Several of our colleagues were saying, we think what's missing is in their management system, and that's about all we knew. And some people were saying, Toyota managers don't tell their people what to do, they ask questions. We tried that. So we told the manager, you can't tell the employee the answer, you can only ask questions. And the manager said, oh, well, I have the answer in my head, but I can't say it, so please try to guess. And it was like, no, I don't think that's what Toyota's actually doing, right? So there was more. So these two questions were the research questions. What are the unseen, invisible, managerial routines and thinking that lie behind Toyota's success with continuous improvement and adaptation? Why can they keep going? How come they can sustain this? The second question is actually the more interesting one, I think. How can other organizations develop similar routines and thinking to Toyota? And that's the question I'm working on today. But let's start with the first question. What are these unseen managerial routines and thinking that lie behind Toyota's success and they're able to sustain their improvement and adaptation? If you look long enough, if you begin to see kind of a pattern of thinking and acting at Toyota, and we depicted it with this four-step model, right? So every manager, every leader at Toyota has their own style, a slightly different way of doing it. It's not, totally consistent. But generally speaking, step one, there's a sense of direction. There is a sense of where are we trying to go. There's a sense of challenge. So there's some sense of overall direction which may be somewhat far away. Then number two, whatever team you're with has to understand the current condition. Where are we now? It doesn't really make sense to make goals for people if we don't first understand where we are. The third step then is to establish a target condition in the direction of the challenge. And the fun step, the one that everybody wants to do, the fourth step is to then work scientifically or conduct experiments in the direction of your next target condition, which, by the way, this target condition always has a date on it. You can see the line going backward here, right? That indicates that experiments don't always produce a positive result or the expected result. We still hear many managers saying to their people, what's the benefit of taking this step that you're proposing? What's the benefit of that? What's the ROI of that step? And actually, the benefit comes from the target condition or the goal and getting there. To think that each step along the way will bring a benefit automatically condemns you to staying where you are today. You will only do things that you can imagine working perfectly. You won't venture beyond what you know today. So it's not the steps that bring the benefit. They often bring the learning, but sometimes it's backwards. It's the target condition that brings the benefit. So this is just a model. It's very similar to systems thinking, learning organization, design thinking, creative thinking. These are all different models. Solution-focused practice, preferred futuring, skills of inquiry, evidence-based learning. All of these approaches and others have a very similar pattern. It may not be 4 steps, but it looks very similar. And that's actually kind of interesting. Because all of a sudden, it's not about Toyota. All of a sudden, it's about humans. And all of a sudden, it's not about, well, his model is better than my model is better than your model. It's about, well, all the models are roughly the same. This is the way humans work when they're very creative. This is the way humans work when they're under pressure. It's like, oh my gosh, where do we need to get to? Where are we today? What happened? What do we need to adjust to get to our next goal? And you adjust very quickly. This is the way the military works. So a key point here is that Toyota's success has come from striving scientifically for all sorts of challenging goals, not just from eliminating waste for greater efficiency. So I called this model the improvement kata because there's a Japanese word, and it's right up here. This is the kanji, and it's a suffix that means way of doing. So this is like the way of doing improvement. There is also a way of coaching or a way of teaching that inside of Toyota, and they have a master-apprentice style of teaching, and it's a lot like what you would recognize from sports and music, where the coach gives the learner procedural input on what they're practicing, and you can see in the photo here, I think it's a great photo, does a corrective input for the learner as they practice on something real. So if you take the improvement kata pattern and the coaching kata pattern and put them together, you have a management system, a management approach for creating a certain kind of capability in the organization. No problem. So we have a model, but no matter how good it is, just explaining a model doesn't generate new ways of thinking and acting. That model I just showed you, the four-step model, we've had similar models since 1978. People have been talking about the learning organization since 1978. There aren't that many learning organizations around. And Sylvain, if I can be, I have one foot in the academic world, if I can be a little critical of us as academics, we make a model and then we say, we've explained it. I don't know why you're not doing it. There it is. Fortunately, we have brain science coming into the picture now, telling us that just explaining a model, no matter how well you do it, no matter how much we talk, no matter how good our slides are, no matter how good our examples are from other companies, will not change your behavior. Hoping to create different behavior by explaining or trying to convince people generally doesn't work. That brings us to the second question. How can other organizations or companies develop similar routines like Toyota's routines in their own organizations? And that's the question that has occupied us since the publication of the Toyota Kata book in 2009. We're not actually studying Toyota anymore. Myself and my colleagues, there are others who are, but Toyota is no longer all that interesting. What's interesting is how do we develop a different kind of culture, a different kind of skill set, and ultimately a different kind of mindset in our organizations. And for that matter, a skill set and a mindset that suits your organization, because I think copying Toyota won't work. So this doesn't work. We have Toyota's way, and we've studied that quite a bit. There's been a lot of publishing about Toyota's way. I've contributed to that myself. And then there's a red arrow going right to our organization. We go look at best practice at Toyota, and then we come back home and we try to introduce it. I think I can pretty confidently at this point say it's just not going to work. It just doesn't work. We don't behave a certain way because we lack information. We behave one way or another because it's a habit. And changing means deliberately practicing a different routine, which over time will change our thinking. Just knowing what Toyota doesn't really help. Furthermore, Toyota's kind of the pros up there. They're the professionals. They're the best at what they do on the planet, right? So this is like picking the best athlete if you want to do a sport, or picking the best musician if you want to learn how to play an instrument, and seeing what they do. And everything that they will explain to you will be correct. This is how I do it. But it won't help you and me because we're beginners. We're not in the same position. Also, experts often make poor coaches. They can't explain what they're doing because it's already a habit. They don't even know what they're doing. So changing means deliberately practicing a different routine. So we're talking about practice, we're talking about deliberate practice, we're talking about the brain. But you wouldn't try to run 20 miles right at the start. Well, you could try, but it won't work, right? You begin with some starter practice routines to help you learn some fundamentals and build some initial confidence in the new skill that you're trying to learn. Getting that initial confidence is very important for the learner. There has to be some sense of, ooh, I'm getting better at this. So I think this is really how it works. And if you take a look, we can study Toyota's way. That's fine. I think it's very important. I think we've learned a lot there, and there's probably more to learn. But then we have to begin with some practice routines somewhere down here. All of us will start at different places, And again, we could be talking about playing a musical instrument or a sport. And then, we evolve by practicing, and ultimately we develop our organization's own way. So the book